Buenas tardes, good afternoon. Bienvenidos a ¿Qué pasa, Mujer? Welcome to ¿Qué pasa, Mujer? Today is January the 14th, 2024. So we're moving right along on 2024. Today we have Maddie with us, Nicte. As you guys know, she's taking a little break this month to do life right now. But we're going to go ahead and bring Maddie on. Today we're going to talk a little bit about everything, just to let you know. Hi, Maddie. How are you?
Buenas tardes. Doing good.
Buenas. ¿Cómo estuvo tu semana?
Busy as always, a little crazy, always all over the place, but just thankful being able to manage and kind of, been telling myself, like one day at a time. Sometimes we overwhelm ourselves trying to solve everything and trying to handle everything at once, and you cannot. So just kind of thankful that been able to manage. And sometimes when you sleep on it, and things don't seem as bad the next day. So thankful for that.
Very true. Like this past week, I've something has been going on with my emotions and my feelings because I've been like journaling and tapping into them. But I've just been like emotional, like with my children, with my mate, or if I see a video online. And then one day I was crying, and he was like, "Why are you crying?" I was like, "I don't know." Like it just came, and I was like, I don't know. And like I have to be okay with that. Sometimes I don't know. And then I
Yeah.
might talk about it in my journal later on. But I've just been learning to accept me more, to understand that this is who I am, and that I'm constantly working to make things better, not to perfection, but just better, just be a better person. And that's just me. Because sometimes I'm like up and down, up and down. And I'm like, and then at the end of the day, I'm like, what's going on? But then like, I like it.
That's
So,
awesome. That's
yes.
awesome.
Yeah, so it is what it is. So this week, I was just thinking about change, in general, and it's the beginning of the year and everything. But I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about artificial intelligence. So I was like, oh, we should talk about that. So they were talking about how usually is Apple that's on top of technology, that's like well known, right? For technology to be as priority for them. But they were saying that Walmart is starting to use drones in a certain area of Texas, where they're doing deliveries. So they're eliminating, human being from driving to people's houses. So I wanted to ask you, Maddie, what is like in your field? Because I remember I was trying to think of like when did artificial intelligence start in my lifetime, and it made me think about like when we first started to see the self checkout um, lanes. And at one point I was like, oh my god, we're not going to have cashiers. So I intentionally would go to a lane with a live person, and I would avoid the self cash out unless I was in a rush to use them. So I don't know, like, when do you remember that you started to see artificial intelligence?
I think we've always seen it. It's just that it's been evolving, like everything. It's like, I think it's like even with the computer. If you think about it, just the invention of the computer, it's like the computer started doing stuff that as humans we could do, but the computer can do it faster, can do it for longer. If you think about it, how much information can you store in your brain versus a computer? How fast can you add versus the computer? How much information can you hold? How fast can you put together a report and send it out? So all of those are things that computers started doing, faster than a human could. So just the invention of the computer, I think, in general. And then you mentioned kind of like in your field, so like for me, my career, it's like online banking. If you think about it, everybody does online banking, and there's a lot of stuff, like we talk to clients all the time, that they try to do stuff online. They try to do everything themselves. And while online banking is great, I think that especially when you don't know products, or when you're trying to join a company for the first time, you shouldn't try to do everything yourselves because you don't know what you're doing, you know. So it's always good to talk to a human. But yeah, if you look around you, there's artificial intelligence in everything nowadays. So
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lady that asked me about starting like a business account, right? And then she was like, "What do you think about this bank?" And so we called, and they don't do business accounts in person. It has to be done online. So I told her, I said, "I don't think that's a good fit because you really, especially if you're starting off your business, you really want to have that relationship with a human being. And if you have any troubles with a deposit or a check or something, like I enjoy going to the branch and they know me by
mhm.
name, you know, and I think that's something that artificial intelligence cannot do.
Hmm. Even
Um,
just a resource, having a resource, somebody that you can ask a question before you go and you do it yourself, because that's what I tell everybody all the time. I mean, I love online banking. I do everything from my phone. I try to do everything automated, but every once in a while, I will have a question, and I like the fact that I can call somebody and say, um, am I doing this correct? Can you what would happen if I do this, before I jump into it, so that's always good to have. So yes,
mhm.
artificial intelligence or automation or self-help is great, but it's always good to have a contact person as well.
Yes. Another one that I heard that I thought was pretty unique. I don't know if this is being sold already because I didn't double check, but they were saying that there's a pillow that prevents you from snoring. So if you're sleeping and you're snoring, it'll identify that you're snoring. So it'll readjust so that your head gets moved. So they were saying like instead of your partner like tapping you or waking you
Uh-huh.
up, the pillow alone would like readjust your head. I was like, that's unique.
Yeah, I mean, what can I tell you? Like with like especially with the snoring, like there's so many factors, that can contribute to that. A lot of the times, yes, it could be, like the way you position your head. It could be your breathing, because you know that they sell like a whole bunch of stuff you like supposedly to open
Hmm.
you up and things like that. So you know uh, could it help? Good. I mean, probably not to every. That's the problem also too. I think with artificial intelligence. It's like when it's created. Basically for a specific person or specific purpose, and we all know that not every human is the same. While the majority of people will respond a certain way to something, doesn't mean that like they'll make a study and there'll be 100 people and it responds the same for 30 people, so they sell it as this, oh yeah, this helps you against whatever, but what about the other 70 people that it didn't help them? So I think that's kind of like the issue with it. Like it's kind of like not a one size, but yes, a one size kind of thing. Like if you have this issue, it will help you with this, but it doesn't take into consideration all the other variables. So
Right. Yeah, I've had a I because I started to think about, again, my initial exposure to artificial intelligence, and I have enjoyed, like, for example, the robot vacuum cleaner. I do enjoy that because I set it with a timer. By the time I get home, that part is done. A lady was saying how she went really back. She said even how cars replaced horses. So that's a method of artificial intelligence as well.
mhm.
So I thought that was unique. But there's a lot of it that I do enjoy. There's a lot of it that is scary, maybe sometimes. And also, as I, talk to young people, I always have this conversation with them, right? In reference to selecting the field that they go into to make sure that it's not replaced. Because I know in a couple of years, I think it's like 85 million jobs are going to be, replaced or something like that by artificial intelligence. So just being intentional about the type of field that you go into, I think is important as well. So I know they're talking a lot about robots. I've seen a waitress, waiter robot. We see it in customer service all the time already. I
Mhm.
went to a fast food restaurant, here in Hampton, and even the drive-through was artificial intelligence, but she was very efficient. the menu, and she asked me, do you want, this additional, it almost sounded like a person, to be honest with you, because it felt very human like, but I knew it was not a human being. um but it was amazing. And even when I pulled up to the actual window to get the food, like everything was so clean inside, and it just, I was like, wow, like I didn't realize that this is what we were doing. And I know even in the academic realm, a lot of artificial intelligence, and I know even professors, teachers are putting it in their syllabus, telling the students, don't use artificial intelligence. But they're
Because
using it.
again, like I remember in college, it's like my never forget my accounting professor. It's like we had a special calculator that we had to buy for my class, and she would teach, and she's like, don't use the calculator. I want you to use the formula, because, again, while the calculator is great and will do the math for you, you need to be able to understand what numbers you're plugging and how the numbers get to where, you know, it will make sense. It will make more sense when you put it in the calculator, if you know what you're doing, so it's one of those things. So if you think about it, that's at the end of the day, that's kind of what it is. While all of this is great, we need to be able to understand it. So when it's no longer working or something happens, we know how to move forward, even we don't have that. Because like I even think, again, I keep going back to computers, because at work we do everything via computers, and when the computers are working, great, efficient, like we could do everything. But when the computers are not working, it's like we cannot even accept a client's deposit. A client comes in to make a deposit, to make a withdrawal, we can't do anything because the computers are not working. So at the end of the day, I think it comes down to that. Great that we can work more efficient with artificial intelligence, but if something happens and it goes down, can we still function without it? And I think that's kind of where the fine line is. As great as it is, like that restaurant that you went to, it was great, they took your order, whatever. What if the computer goes down? That means that if the computer goes down, they don't have a person to be able to take your order. They don't have somebody to be able to cook the order and kind of feed the clients, until somebody comes and fixes it. So that's the
Yeah, and
scary
it will
part.
affect their revenue.
Exactly, exactly. Funny you mentioned a restaurant. My niece is in college and she goes to George Mason University. And I remember the other day, well, at the beginning when the year started last year, I called her, and, it was like, I don't know, like maybe 9, 10 o'clock at night, and she was sitting outside, and I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I'm just waiting for my food. So they actually have the little robots that come to the dorm and deliver food. I was like, what? How to, I mean, like, I'm like still trying to wrap my head around it. But yeah, it's like this little thingy that comes, and I guess they give them the address. I don't know how it works, but
Yeah.
like literally they have the robots that deliver the food to the different dorms. So
Yeah, it's just like I was shocked because I'm into like drones and aircraft and stuff like that. And I before when I thought about drones, I thought about like the police department uses drones, PETA when it comes to when there's like hurricanes or whatever from human nature. PETA uses drones to find the animals in different communities. But I never thought that organization like Walmart would actually have drones. So it made me think about, like 10 years from now, we're just going to have a lot of aircraft. Just, can you just imagine as much deliveries that are done today through Amazon and Walmart and all of them? Like everything is going to be like, what is it? The Jetsons, right? Like we're going to start to
yes.
live that way. That's going to be our life, is the Jetsons.
And it's funny because we used to watch the cartoons and you're like, oh my God. And then now it's like, oh my God, here we are. And it's looking more and more like that. Like you mentioned Amazon, you think about Amazon, like how many times, I mean, because I'm guilty of it. I'll go in there and I'll look at the stuff that says, 2-day delivery, if like, wait, what can I get the fastest?
Or
Like it's
next
no longer.
day. Sometimes.
Exactly. Next, so some of them are same day. Like you
Mhm.
you can order stuff in the morning and you get it in the afternoon. So it's like, yeah, like, yeah. And we becoming, and we're becoming more and more dependent on it. And the more we utilize the services, like you said, you mentioned about using a live person, the less you utilize a live person, the less need they're going to see for that live person.
Mhm.
Again, I always just keep thinking, if, because it happens all the time. The cars are wonderful, but a car will malfunction. Your car will break down, it would mess up, and then when the car messes up, you're stuck because you have no, how are you going to get from A to B, So that's always my fear. And like in the back of my mind, like, while they're great, what happens if something happens?
Yeah, yeah. And that's the part that's scary for me as well, is that especially younger people that haven't experienced life like you and I have before all of this technology was here. Um we tend to be a little bit more resourceful, right? So if the car breaks down, the battery's dead on the phone, like our brain it starts to like, okay, let me figure this out. But a
Mhm.
lot of young people are like the thought process just stops, right? Which kind of goes back to the calculator example that you gave. And I say this to my students all the time, like, you're probably not going to use algebra, geometry, algebra 2, when you're an adult, because I don't use it. But it's just the thought process that you're giving, the multi-step, the
Mhm.
figuring out the formulas. And yes, you should know how to input the formula and do it in your head, because one, like, it's just the critical thinking piece of it, versus all of the students are using Desmos. You just put the numbers in, it gives you the answer.
Yeah. Yeah, even funny you mentioned your students, because I remember talking to one of my employers one time, and kind of like bragging about my college degree, and whatever, I went to college and blah 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 blah. And she was like, great, but that means nothing. College just means that you are able to finish what you start. That's the only thing that college shows me. That you will know how to do your job, I don't know, we'll see. But it just shows me that you're able to finish what you start. As an employer, that's all I'm looking at. And
Hmm.
it just kind of hit me. I was like, oh my God. And then you think about it. Yeah, you mentioned you don't use algebra, you don't use this, you don't use that. If you think about it, there's so many requirements that you have to meet before you can get a college degree, or a degree, or a certificate, or whatever it may be. And 90% of the stuff that you take, you don't use, day to day. But again, it's just kind of the discipline, and the able to complete what you start. But if you don't put any thought process, I guess, in the middle, doesn't make it worthwhile.
Right.
It's like um signatures. Like, the kids nowadays are not learning cursive. And I can't tell you, like, I have students 15, 16 that come into the bank to open an account. And when I tell them, you got to sign this document, this is a signature card, and this is what we use to compare your signature anytime you make a withdrawal. And they're like, what's a signature?
Right.
Like,
They don't even
how
know
do
what
you,
the word means.
it's like, how do and it's like, how do you explain it? Because um it's not as crucial as it was before to have a unique signature, because this is what's going to appear in your document. No, now it's just a point and click on a computer that says, I agree. That's your signature nowadays.
Right. Or your
So,
fingerprint,
so
or facial recognition, or the stuff that we see in the movies where they just have. I know when I went to Colombia, you could get like an express lane, but you have to get your eye scanned. I was like, oh no, I'm not doing that. Like, I was like, they already have enough of me. I'm not making it easy for them to scan my eye. Not at all. But yeah,
that's
one of my colleagues, he does software developing, and he has a nonprofit organization, and so he trains people with to get certified in things called A+ certification, and another one that's with IT. And I'm telling you, like, that is the field to go into, because he always tells me we have to create the artificial intelligence, right? So like young people have to go into fields where they create the artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
Um, So I always tend to promote that because it's just inedible. Like we're moving in that direction, and who knows what it will be like, when you and I are in our 80s. But I mean, just because it's moving so quickly, and I am guilty of using artificial intelligence even in my profession. I use it all the time. It can literally replace a personal assistant, right? But to me there's nothing like the human touch to be able to laugh and just interact with that person, not just giving them a checklist of things that they have to accomplish. And then one of the things that I was thinking about too is, can we have our, like I saw on TV several months ago, I was watching a series and they were in the hospital. So there was a company that came into the hospital trying to sell a software on a tablet, where the tablet would hear the patient, what they were feeling, all of that, and then the computer would diagnose what the patient had. And I was like, oh my god, like I get it, right? Like it makes sense. But it's scary because now, like, you don't even need a doctor there or a nurse. They just speak into the computer and they say, okay, you're diabetic, or and they might scan your body or whatever.
And that's the thing, that's the scary part, that it might work for some people, but not everybody's the same. So if we keep it to that, like, again, that's what the human touch does. Like a doctor might be able to catch something different, may have had an experience, that, okay, this looks like something that I've seen before, that the computer is only trained to, okay, this symptom, it means this, so I don't know. Again, while I do enjoy it and I do love it, I think that, it doesn't compare to being, again, as a patient too, be able to talk to another person and say, this is what I'm feeling, and I'm feeling this, and I'm feeling this, and sometimes this happen and that happens and whatever, and just kind of being able to express yourself and say exactly what you're feeling, not sometimes the computer wants you to give a straight answer, but it is not a straight answer. It's not a yes or no, it's a maybe, it's a sometimes, it's not all the time. So it's like, it's one of those things. It's like, okay, how do I put that so my information is recorded, but it's understood. So
Mhm.
I don't know, that's kind of like the scary part. Again, while it's convenient and while I love it, and sometimes it's efficient, um I don't fully agree with it replacing, everything. Again, we're becoming more and more dependent, just think about your phone. It's like, I do everything with my phone. I can't even tell you how many times I've left the house and I am running late for work and I will turn around because I left my phone. I will not go to the corner without my phone because my life is in there. That's like the only phone line that I have. All of my stuff is in there, documents. I mean, everything is on my phone. So, how did we function before without cell phones? I remember what 1990. Let's see, I got married in 98, 96. I had a beeper. I
Right.
think I got married. When I got married was the
We
first
had
time.
to like flip it upside down so we could have the hidden message like hello. Remember that?
Listen, yes, and the quarters in your pockets if you wanted to answer a phone call because you have to go get a payphone to be able to make a phone call. So, all those things, so I remember that. And then I'm like thinking about it and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so dependent on this phone. And 10, 20 years ago, I didn't have a cell phone. And then now I can't imagine my life without a cell phone, so it's like it is moving fast, so, and we're becoming more and more dependent on it. And it's like, what are we doing with society? Like you said, just logical thinking, just the problem solving, um like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because I see, I mean, even with my own children, I'm like, and that's why I always say like solutions, not problems, right? Like,
Mhm.
what are other ways? So you bring me a problem, all right, cool. It's a problem. We acknowledge it. It's a valid point, but okay, so how do we move forward? How do we fix this? What? Because there's always possibilities. There's
Mhm.
different options but what option are you going to go with? I don't know if I ever said this story on air, but when my son was, I don't know, I think he was like 3 or 4. He was sitting in the back seat. He just finished a banana. He peeled it, and he was like, "Mommy, here's the banana peel." And I was driving, and I said, "No, like hold, like I'm driving. There, I can't do
Mhm.
anything with it." He said, "Well, what am I supposed to do with it?" And I said, "Figure it out," because I'm famous for saying that. Figure it out. So he literally held it in his hand until we got home. And once we got home, I was like, "Hey, like you had options, right? You could have laid it on the floor. You could have thrown it out the window. Like you could, I mean, so many options, right? But you literally chose to hold on to it till we got home." And I think sometimes it's hard for them to think outside of the box because we haven't exposed them to outside of the box at home or at school. And before we go on, I just want to say hi to Tangi. Hi, Tangi, because she said, "Hi, ladies." And then you were talking earlier and she was saying that that was facts or whatever. And then she just said, oh, she also talked about the initials, just kids knowing their initials. Um, it's just, I don't know, it's just crazy sometimes how life just evolves, how people respond to it. I know a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I was tutoring a lady. I was teaching her Spanish, and she was older, and she didn't have a microwave. She didn't have a watch. I think she would call, I don't know if she had a cell phone, or maybe she would call me from home. But so I asked her one time. I said, "Well, how do you know that is like, let's say we met at 2:30. Like, how do you know it's 2:30?" She said, "I just know because I have a routine. So my husband and I go to breakfast at this place, and then I take him home. I take care of my cats, and da, da, da." So, and like she had like a body clock that just told her
Mhm.
like it's almost 2:30. Let me go and meet with Viviana at Barnes and Noble. you know, It's like, I guess, and I get it because I think sometimes we have an internal clock. Like
Mhm.
I naturally wake up at 6:45 every day, right? And I set the alarm just as a backup, just to make sure I don't oversleep. But my body is already used to that routine. As much as I want to sleep in, sometimes I don't.
Yep. Yep. It's like you said, it's routine. It's kind of habit. It's kind of what we get, used to, because like every day, even if I sleep late, like by 7 o'clock, I'm up, like seven the latest, because I usually wake up. My alarm is usually 6 or 6:30, and I naturally wake up by 7. Even if I continue sleeping, but I open my eyes around 7 o'clock, because I'm usually by that time I'm already up, So I think once you get used to a certain routine, that's kind of what happens, and that's what had to happen before. I remember when I had the twins, it's like my world was turned upside down because there was two of them and one of me, and it's like, how do I get things done? Like I would never get anything done if I go by whatever they need. And I had to learn, I had to teach myself and teach them that it was when mommy was ready, like, okay, this is what we need to do. You're gonna get up at this time. I don't care if you're sleepy, and you're gonna at this time, we're gonna shower. At this time, we're gonna eat. At this time, you're gonna nap because that's the only time that I get to do stuff. And you're gonna nap for 4 hours. I don't care if you have to lay there and just make noise to each other, because they, I guess they understood each other, but whatever. But I had to because I couldn't. And I remember before they turned one, I had a hard time with them. I had a hard time with them falling asleep. So it's like one will fall asleep and then will start crying and wake the other one up. And then that one will be up. And then I would have to be running back and forth. I remember the room was in the back of the apartment, and then my room was in the front, like by the front door. So this is me running back and forth, back and forth. And it was crazy. And my sister was like, no. you have to let them get used to each other's cries, and they will get used to it, and eventually they will sleep through it. But you have to let them get used to it. I'm not saying don't pick them up, but let them cry for a bit. If one is awake and the other one's crying, you let the baby cry for a little while, 5 6 minutes, and then you come in and you get him, and then you try to help and things like that. So I was like it was like my mind was blown, because it was like, oh my god, really. And I always tell the story. One time I walked into the room, and one of the boys was hysterically crying, and the other one literally had the pillow over his head, like trying to cover. And they were like a year old, they were in cribs, he had the pillow over his head, you just trying to cover himself from the noise, but he was trying to sleep. So again, force of habit, we tend to get used to things, and if you do them enough, your body kind of reminds you, okay, you're not doing this thing that we've been doing for the past 30 days.
Right. That's true. Let's see. Tangi said facts about your degree and initials instead of a signature. And then Lily said, pero antes de todo esto, tu palabra era suficiente. Yeah. We have trust issues now with society. Trust
Yes,
issues. We do. That's why we require signature and initials and face recognition and fingerprints and all that because we have trust issues. Um, yeah, what do you think about what other field do you think that young people should go into to have better chances of not being replaced by AI?
I think, if you think about it, um everyday needs, things that again, like we talk about a lot of stuff that you can do in the hospitals and things like that. But the you need people to operate the machines. So yes, they have all kinds of equipment, but you need people to operate the machines, operate the equipment. So actually, we've been going through this conversation with my nephew, who was in college and decided that maybe college was not necessarily for him. And he's young, not, he just turned 20. So he has plenty of time. But it's like, okay, what do you do? So he was kind of, he's thinking, exploring his options, so more thinking about like a trade, maybe learning a trade. And we were talking about that medical fields, x-rays, and a tech of some sort, because those are always needed. Technology, like you mentioned before, computers, anything that has to do with computer technology, I think it's always important. Cybersecurity is one of those other things too, because just like we were, like we need cops, to be out in the streets, because we do everything through computers now. You need somehow of being able to police the computers too. So it's like, okay, we need security for out there, and we need security for out here, in here too. So yeah, I would say, like, think about what the day-to-day needs may be, and then kind of like look at those fields first.
Yeah, definitely the technology, the software developing,
Hmm.
the cybersecurity. I do remember seeing again, sometimes I haven't been watching series lately, but sometimes I get caught up, but I do remember watching one where it was the cops were robots. So they had a combination of robot cops and then regular people, but again, they would still get injured, because they would lose part of their foot or uh if I don't know, something electronically, like the wires weren't set up properly and they would just shut down. And because they even got shot, so they still, somebody had to repair them.
Exactly.
So you always, I hope that my great grandchildren will still have some type of human touch with people, because like even if you do like solar charging, right? Because I know they have plants with just buildings filled with battery charging, equipment for different things, but you still need humans to operate. or to create, like you were saying earlier. So we still need inventors. We still need people that are going to troubleshoot and just make it better and just fix the things.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's again, that's it's human nature. If you think about the first person that did, I think, like the first person that did a C-section. I think I was watching some series about kings and queens. I can't even think about it, but it was like one of those old stories. And they decided to do a C-section, and when they did a C-section, the mom died. There was no way of, they just knew how to open up the mom and take the baby out, and there was no pain medication or nothing. It's just cutting through a person that's still alive, that may be dying but still alive, to take out another life, and then just watch the other one. So there was a lot of trial and error, a lot of learning, to be able to kind of be able to do a surgery and kind of, make it through. So if you think about it, that's the same thing. When you first start with artificial intelligence, you start with one thing, and then you see how far that thing can go, and then you program it to do more, and then more, and even better. Even the information, the article that you shared with me earlier, it's like the stuff that these robots can do now. It's crazy if you think about it. There were some things that it said something like the robot is able to communicate using human emotions, and it's kind of able to detect human emotions, like move the face and things like that, which is something that it's very human. Only we do that, like we move our faces a certain way. Like we talk about all the time, I talk with my hands, and we tend to do this even though I'm in front of the computer, and sometimes you can't see my hands. Even, if you see movement, my hands are moving, because that's kind of how I speak. So, you know an artificial intelligence that's able to identify all of that and kind of react to what I'm trying to express by doing all that. So, I mean, you think about it, it's scary, but those are things that maybe 2-3 years ago, the robot was not able to do, and now all of a sudden, it does.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so and again, trial and error, and somebody, okay, we got this far. Let's make it do more. Let's make it do more. Let's make it do
Mm-hmm.
more.
Yeah. And I know also they're moving just cities, just like we carry a smartphone, the cities are going to be smart. So some of the stuff that we see on videos or, on social media in reference to, especially in Asia, I notice it a lot. They have, vending machines where you can, order food, or everything is through the vending machine. Everything is very automated, or even those they're like even their homes are very automated, like the soap dispenser when you walk in, and how your shoes are cleaned when you walk in the house, and the all the kitchen uh
Appliances, yeah.
appliances that they have, and everything is very automated. But I know here in the United States, I know in the city where I live, they do have a campaign. I forgot the year that they said. I don't know if it was 2032 maybe, where the city is going to be fully smart. So the street lights, um, cameras, just the detection of crime, facial recognition, like all of that stuff. The entire city is going to be smart. I know even now, and this is just very like low level, but I know even cameras. Like if we have cameras in our building at my office, if they're outside, the police department has access to them so that they can monitor crime too, not after the crime happens, but in prevention purposes as well. And then they give, organizations money for the police department to have access to them. So there's grants
Mhm.
available for that. But yeah, it's scary, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, everything comes at a price. It's like, okay, we're gonna be more protected, but then what does that do for our privacy? So yes, they can see everything that we're doing, everything, even everything that we didn't ask them to look at. So it's that kind of thing. So it's like, okay, do I want this or do I want that? And at
Mhm.
the same token, I think, we also see how this, while it's good, it can also be used for bad. So again, the violation of the privacy, but also like we see it all the time again in my field, how people take advantage of other people. Like we've had lately, the biggest issue that we've had is people taking over computers. Like they remotely go into the person's computer and then it exposes all their information. I actually had somebody that got a call and they told them that it was from the bank, and verify that her information or whatever, which we later understood that they were phishing for her information, and they got her information. And then they said that in order to help her with the issue, she had to download this app, which was like a remote thing. And she downloaded the app, she gave them the information, and they got in her phone. And yeah, they had access to all of her information, everything that she had on her phone. So again, just being very careful, and but everything that can help us can also harm us even more. So
Definitely. I know a couple of years ago, I had some fraud done in my account, and they did the investigation, and then they found out that actually somebody actually took cash out from an ATM machine, but they were like in California somewhere.
mhm.
And I was like, oh man, like how do they do that, right? Because my card is here. During that time, I had never been to California in my life, and I was like, man. And then me, because I'm not too knowledgeable about it. I was like, it had to be in house. Like somebody from the bank gave my information to someone, but like, how do you duplicate a ATM transaction with the card to take cash out? Like, how does that
Mhm.
happen?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I've seen it. I can, like, it happened to me personally. Same thing. I was at work and my card was swiped in North Carolina while I was at work in Newport News, Virginia. So I'm like calling my husband to cuss him out, and I'm like, "What did you do?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Well, you just took out $500 out of the account." And he's like, "No, I haven't." And then I looked at it, and of course, when I looked at it, it was my debit card, not his, and it was swept in North Carolina. So I immediately knew that it was some kind of fraud. So I mean, it happens. They your numbers can be exposed in a million different ways, and
Mm.
they can record that information and they can make a duplicate card and it can be used anywhere. I had a client whose card information was uploaded into a gift card, and they have a recording of the person making a purchase with a gift card, which we later understood that it was the client's information loaded into that gift card.
Wow.
So it's like you never know, a million things can happen. And clients are always asking, how can I protect myself, how can I guard my information? And honestly, you cannot. Like
Mm.
if you think about it, your information is everywhere. The best thing that you can do for yourself is be aware of what's out there for you. So whether it means checking your credit report, I think I've mentioned this before, and I will say it again. By law, you're entitled to get a copy of your credit report, not your credit score, but your credit report. What's listed on your credit from all three credit bureaus. So if you go to the annual free annual credit report.com, there's a form, and you can order your credit report through the form. You can order it over the phone, or you can order it online, and you can download it from all three credit bureaus. So that way you can see what is listed in all of them, and if there's something that you don't recognize, you can dispute it before something happens. Because the majority of the time what happens is that we don't know what's listed on there, and then you're ready to purchase that home, or you're ready to purchase your car, and then you find out, like, what, I was
And
working
then
on
it delays you
yeah,
from doing
I
whatever you're trying to do.
was working on a loan for a client this past week, and same thing happened. There was a charge off there of an account from 2014, and the client's credit was great, but it said unresolved. So that means that there was a balance owed on there. So now they won't do the loan until the client pays off the money. And it's not a huge amount, it's a doable amount, but if you don't know that's out there, how can you take care of it? You know what I'm saying? So it's little things like that. Just be aware of what's going on with your stuff. That's the best way you can safeguard yourself. The changing of passwords. Sometimes we get into the habit of so comfortable with the same password. Maybe update your passwords, even if by a letter or something. But get in the habit of changing those on a regular basis, especially if it's something that you use on a regular basis, because you
Mm.
never know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's so true. Especially sometimes we do like, you know how we do the like the bill pay or the automatic draft or whatever, like all of those things, and just your
Mhm.
information is out there. And again,
Correct.
like you said, it's just to monitor it. So just making sure we look at our bank statements, our transactions, just to make sure that, you know, things are legit because they take money up all the time.
Yes.
Time.
Yes, and that's what fraudsters do. They try to take little by little so that you don't notice, and then they take a little more and a little more, and then next thing you know, you're like, "Oh my God, I've lost hundreds of dollars, and I had not even noticed." So
Hmm. Yeah, I
yeah.
don't know if I told you, but maybe like 2 years ago, my son had ordered something, sneakers, and it came from another country. And then, a few weeks later, I get a package with like dog treats, right? And we didn't have a dog. So then I opened it up, and then I saw that I was charged, I don't know, $40, right? $40 and then $15. So I called the company, and then I called my bank, everything. So it ended up being fraudulent. They gave me the money back. But I remember I called the customer because the people at the bank said call customer service and see what happened or whatever. So I called, and I remember pressing the number to talk to an agent, and all you hear is a dog barking. Like it was a joke. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, and I guess they were thinking, well, you still got a shipment at home, so you got products for the
Mhm.
charge. And I did open it, and I kept it because I didn't send it back, but I didn't approve the transaction, And it was
Mhm.
just so weird that they just kind of and I'm sure whatever they mailed me was not the value of what
Of
they
what
took from
you
my
paid.
card.
Yeah, and what happens is that you Visa and Mastercard, your credit cards, they have an insurance for you anytime you make a purchase. So a lot of the times when you dispute those charges, your Visa or Mastercard will refund you the money, and then they will try to collect from that company. That's why sometimes the companies, they don't care whether you return the funds or not, because a lot of the times Visa doesn't get that money back you know
Mm,
so it's like
yeah.
they could care less. I got your money, now they have to come and find me to get it from me. It's that kind of
Mhm.
thing. So sometimes they get it back, sometimes they don't, but the client, for using Visa and Mastercard, they do get their funds back.
Yeah. Yeah, so I just think that we have to be tactful as to how we use artificial intelligence. Like I said,
Correct.
I do use it at my job, but I use it as a resource, not as so I'll ask it like, generate an email to write to this type of client or a recommendation letter. And so I'll use it as a guide, as a template. But then, I tweak it to make it my letter, or my advertising or whatever. So I just think that we should be smart to just use it as a resource.
Correct. I think also, while doing our jobs, we get so comfortable to inputting information in the computer that if we have to do it by hand, will we be able to pull it off? Will we be able to capture all the information that is needed in order to be able to help the client? So like for us, we feel every time the client opens an account, there is again, a signature card that needs to be completed. So if I don't have a computer, can I capture all the information that is needed, that on there, that automatically pre-fills when I create the client's information? So it's little things like that, if you don't have the experience and you don't know exactly what you're doing, little things like that that may be important and crucial, you may miss. So I think, while it's great to use computers to do stuff, it should also be great, you should also be prepared to be able to handle it without a computer, just so that you know what you're doing. So I will always say that regardless of whatever you're doing, you should, like, we're gotten away from pen and paper. Like, I remember the other day doing a project with my son. Like, he had to do a project from school, and like they gave him a job, and he was making whatever an hour, and then he had to go house shopping and kind of see what kind of house he could afford and explain why and how he was gonna blah blah blah. So he's like, "Mom, I need your help." So we were like looking for actual houses in the market and stuff like that, and it was crazy. So I'm like, okay, So I'm like, where is your pen and paper? Like, why are you not writing like the little tips that I'm giving you? He's like, Mom, I'm taking notes here on my computer. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, I mean, why am I going to write in a notebook when I have to put it in the computer anyway?
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm like, duh. But at the same time, it's like, you don't know how to take notes, you
Yeah.
know? But,
Yeah,
like to me,
it's true.
the first thing I said, get pen and paper so that, we can talk about these numbers and kind of make the numbers make sense. This is how much you're going to make a month, a year. And this is how much a house is going to cost you. And this is how much rent is going to be and blah, blah. So, but to me, I'm like in my mind jotting notes down. And then he's like typing in his computer and he's like, oh, I got you. I took all the notes. Okay.
Well, at least he took notes. I know several months ago, I was at the office and I handed an adult a pencil to write something. And they were like, oh man, I haven't held a pencil in my hand in such a long time. I'm like, really? Like, I love pencils more than pens. But yeah, it's just the life that we live, you know? And I have a stylus on my phone because I have a Note Galaxy phone. So I use the stylus all the time, but I love to write with pencils. So when he said that to me, I almost felt insulted. I was like, what? You haven't used a pencil? I'm
I
like, am
know.
I that antiquated? Like, am I that disconnected?
Listen, when I started not when I started, but about 10 years ago when I got into poetry, I used to, write my poems by hand, and I used to do it all the time. And now, I just got used to writing on my phone. And sometimes when I think about writing, it's like, like I start writing with paper and then I just end up on the phone just because it's easier to delete and replace a word. And if I'm not sure what word I'm going to use, let me go into
Mm,
the thesaurus and look for a synonym and things like that. It just kind of makes it a lot easier if it's on the phone. And I've gotten so used to that. But I remember being able or always wanting to write a poem on paper and make it look pretty on paper. And I can't remember the last time I did that.
right. Mm. So interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. Are you ready for your poem?
Oh, I feel like we got there so early. Okay. I know we talked a little bit about talking about feelings and kind of going through a lot. I feel you talked at the beginning of the show how you've been feeling a bunch of things and sometimes there's no explanation for it. You are just feeling, and that it is okay to allow yourself to feel. And I think um as we age, as we get older, it's like we tend to, I guess, identify things a little bit better, a little bit more. And then sometimes, we are able to make, I think when we're younger, we feel stuff and then we let feelings overwhelm us. And then as we get older, we learn that we have, like you said, choices, you can choose to be overwhelmed by that, or you can work through it, or you can let it pass and it will pass. So again, I guess the older that I get, the more that sinks in. But before I get into my poem, I just kind of want to share. At the end of the year, I had the opportunity to team up with a couple of poets. And Mark, I sent you a link, so I don't know if you can share. But I had the opportunity to take part in this amazing project that is called divine, it's called She Speaks, a collection of divine feminine, and it's all women, and kind of it's a daily, like a daily message kind of thing. So we just did the first volume, which is for the month of January. And I have a couple of quotes in there. And actually, I wanted to bring it up because our poem that I wrote for Que Pasa Mujer. It is featured on there, or it was featured for January 8th, which was the day right before my birthday. So it was amazing. So just kind of, we're putting the link out there. Again, it's called She Speaks, a collection of divine feminine, and it's the part one. And every month there's going to be a different one that's going to come out, and we're going to be collaborating on that. So I hope you guys like it. I loved it. I love the message of it. And again, sometimes we do need inspiration. Sometimes we feel like lost in what we're feeling, and that things are unique to us, and they're not. So again, so the poem that I'm going to read today is a little short one, and it's an old one as well, but it kind of has to do with that, with feelings. Sometimes we feel stuff inside of us. Me personally, since I'm a public speaker, every time that I go out there, it's funny because I get all the time, you have this energy and there's this vibe about you, and there's this light and this brightness, and it's like, really, people, that's how people see me. And then inside my heart or in my mind, I feel like there's all this darkness and all these things that I'm battling. And it's like, if I tell you what I feel inside, would you still see me the same way? So that's kind of where this poem comes from. So it's called The Way You See Me. When I see me, sometimes I wish I saw what others can see. Or better yet, if they saw what I can see, would they still think highly of me? It's like I wear reading glasses and I am able to read the real me. Others wear sunglasses, allowing them to see only what the sun wants them to see. They see light, they see bright, they see smiles, not the darkness, the ugly, the vile. And I go on, trying to cover the sun with my thumb. But you can't compare this fake smile with the center of the world. My light is dimming and I am hanging on, trying not to drown in my ocean of despair, telling myself that 5 more minutes will get me there, clinging to my lifeline of desperation, having no expectations, wondering if it is better to cut the connection, like I've been tossed to another dimension. I feel lost, like my mind is a forbidden zone that I must hide and never expose. Because if you could really see it, would that change the way you see me?
So this is it, right?
Yes. Yes, that's what it is. So, yes, please go out there, get your copy, kind of review it, tell me what you think, tell me what you like it. If you like it, there's little prompts in there so that you can write your own thing. So, please support the project, and we're open to feedback. If there's something you like, if something you didn't like, please let us know. Thank you,
You
Vivian.
should do a puzzle poem.
I
And so I
probably,
could get excited. I love the puzzles.
I think I have a love poem. I can remember the last time I wrote one of those, but that is kind of puzzly. So I think I'm gonna dig in the archives and I'll share that with you.
So I have to show you guys. This is my latest poem that I did, and I actually gave it to Tangi. So Tangi's mom, not poem. I'm sorry, puzzle.
Oh,
Not
I'm
you
like
got
a
excited.
poem.
No,
Yes,
puzzle.
I'm like,
So Tan- Tangi's mom passed away, I think like 2 years ago, or maybe less. I think it was in a May. And Tangi watches us all the time, so I bought her this puzzle because her mom liked orange, so that was her favorite color. So this is 1,000 pieces, and it's the first puzzle that I've done that's 100% wood. So like once I put it together, I was actually able to lift it up on its own, so I didn't have to glue it. And then I found like a really nice frame from it for it. And like you see how the orange pops a lot. And it's
oh,
like
that's
you can't see it
beautiful.
so much like the way that it looks now, but like if you see it in person, it is so nice. She loved it. Plus
It
I
is
like the orange. So
beautiful.
it was my inspiration to give her something, but the orange was like the part that I liked the most.
That's beautiful.
But yeah, yeah, I love it. But thank you for the poem. I am going to buy. She speaks a collection of divine feminine, right? Part one.
Uh-huh.
So I'm gonna buy it. I found the link. So I'll make sure that I get it. And thank you so much for your poem today. That was amazing. It like tapped into what I've been going through this week.
Thank you.
Sure. So have a great week, and then we'll see you guys again next Sunday at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Todos los domingos a las 4 de la tarde. Entonces nos veremos y que tengan una excelente semana. And thank you, Mark, for everything that you do.
Over 3.2 million students are victims of bullying every year. Over 56% of students have witnessed bullying one way or another in high school. If you are a victim of bullying, do not be afraid to get help. You are not alone.
This is gonna be great.
You're gonna like it here.
You're gonna love it here.
You're gonna work hard here. You're gonna meet new people.
And learn new things.
Great things.
And do stuff you never thought you'd do.
Let me lay it all out for you.
Auto shop.
Solar panels.
Computer lab.
Biomed lab.
Language lab. Dental lab.
Phlebotomy.
Oh, I hate needles.
Financial aid office.
Well, that's important.
Fire academy.
Seriously?
Cafe. Bookstore.
Welding shop.
But that's not the best part.
The best part?
Amazing teachers.
Really opened my eyes.
I love getting started with a new group of students.
You need something? Just ask.
Really supportive staff. This guy's hilarious.
Super smart people in my classes.
I learn as much from them as they do from me.
Boom, it just comes alive right here in the classroom.
So many groups to join.
Debate club. The final draft.
Gamers of Durham, baby.
Practical Nursing Club.
Business Leadership Initiative. Phi Beta Lambda.
Environmental Science Club.
Amigos Unidos. Spectrum.
Women's leadership club.
Soccer Club.
Kalapka Estudantiga Alamiga.
I found my home here.
This was the right choice for me. We want students to be their best.
You're gonna push yourself.
The people around you.
They make you better.
I didn't know I could do that.
But I did it.
To see what they're able to accomplish? Wow.
I had no idea what I was going to do. The people here will help you figure it out.
It's so welcoming. Open arms.
They all said,
There was just one thing.
I had to do.
Do great things.
hacer grandes cosas.
Do great things.
Let's do this. Are just so impressed with them. Like I said, we've been with them for years. I will recommend and refer anyone to them. We stand by A+ academics. They're the best.
A+ tutorial really did help me with all my grades. They all went up when I came to this place. And I would say I recommend this school to everyone.
So it's a really good environment to be in, especially for me because it makes me look up to my parents.
If you have students that need academic help, A+ Academics is the place to be.
A+ Academics, what a great place to go for academics.
It's just a really great place to learn.